Hello and welcome to day 4 of the Heal Yourself, Heal Your Life Challenge. Thank you so much for joining me and for being here this week. If you're watching live, go ahead and say hello. I love to know that you're here. Now, sometimes my system doesn't even tell me when someone is watching live, so hopefully I'll be able to see. And of course, if you're watching the replay, go ahead and post replay. And I'd love to hear your questions, anything that you have questions about today or any other of the challenge days. So I look forward to sharing more with you about the topic for today, which is learning how your one true ally communicates with you. So yesterday we spoke about your one true ally. Now, keep in mind that when we're on this soul journey, there are many allies that we can work with. The one that we are most in contact with 24/7 is our body. And so that's why I think that's the most important ally that we want to learn to communicate with and learn to have this relationship with that is beneficial so that then we can use that communication to better our lives, to better that connection that with our soul energy, with our soul essence. And because our body is the one that helps us to express that, our body is the one that helps us to manifest and to create. So we want to change the dynamics of our relationship with our body. And so that's what we started with yesterday. So we needed to have that little mind shift in order to be able to now be open to thinking about, well, how does our body communicate with us? What's the language of the body? And then how can I start to be able to decipher, to translate, to be able to speak that language so that there is a relationship, because you cannot have a relationship between two beings when there's no understanding and there's no communication. Now, even when people don't speak the same like verbal language, there's still body language, there's still motions and so on. So the people, even who don't speak the same language, can still communicate. So there's still a way to find a common language. So that's one of the things that we want to start doing with our body is, one, think of it as an ally, right? Well, that's step number one. Because if we have this antagonistic relationship, then we're not going to listen. We're not going to pay attention. We're going to think that whatever is being communicated is not useful, right? Because we usually think in those ways when we have these people who we know don't intend well-being for us, right? They don't have the best of intentions for us. So we don't listen to them. Well, that's not the case with our body. So our body is our ally. Keep in mind that our soul essence is wanting to come through our body. So our soul communication is wanting to come through our body. So that's why we want to make sure we treat our body as an ally and then we learn to communicate. So that's what we are focusing on today. So what we want to do is we want to make sure. So I used in the email, I used the metaphor of a radio, right? You want to be dialed in to the right frequency. And so we want to start understanding, well, how does our body communicate with us, right? So now we know we're starting to pay attention to this frequency so that we can make sure that we're on the right frequency and we can start paying attention, listening, capturing those messages so that then we can start to work with them. So the way that our body communicates with us is through our sensations, right? You can think of that through the feelings that you have in the body. Ultimately, it's through vibration, right? Because a feeling basically is a vibration that is moving through us. And in fact, you may have heard, excuse me, you may have heard the phrase like emotion is energy in motion. And so we can think of sensations, feelings, emotion, this energy that's in motion. Well, what is that? Well, that's just a vibration, right? That's just So the way that I like to think of it is that's a vibration that our soul is creating is creating in order to have us listen, right? So that we can pay attention. And so we want to be thinking of that. Now, you're probably on the, you're probably thinking, well, what about pain? Like, do I have to listen to pain? Well, you may have heard people say, and this is common, like, especially for people who are experiencing challenges that are very, that are difficult, right? So when you have something that's chronic, for example, or if you have something that's incurable, for example, or if you have something that it requires extensive treatment to cure. So it's difficult to think of, well, how is my body as an ally for that? Well, just remember that if when we start experiencing pain or when something becomes chronic, that usually means that we haven't been listening. There's been messages that have been happening for years, maybe decades, that we didn't know were messages. Like we didn't know that that it was our body communicating with us. And so no one teaches us how to decipher these messages. And so now we're experiencing this as pain or as this particular physical challenge that is something that we're working through. What we want to make sure that we do, no matter what situation you find yourself in now, is know that there is a way that you can start learning what those messages are. And a lot of times, getting to that ultimate healing that you're looking for requires that you go deeper, requires that you start listening to what those messages are. So we've heard examples, for example, from people who get cancer, right? That the cancer, they think of it as a blessing because that forced them to look at their lives and to change their lives, right? And so once they change their lives, or in the process of healing the cancer, they change their lives. So they start seeing we start seeing the cancer as a positive thing that came into their lives, because otherwise they would have continued the way they were going, and their life would never have improved. Well, what we want to do is we want to get to that point before something catastrophic like that happens. And that's where I was in my life when I really started exploring this, because I had a friend who was really close to retiring, and then she died suddenly, and it was very unexpected. And of course, she was looking forward to retirement. She was looking forward spending time with her grandchildren and so on, and she wasn't able to do any of that. So she had been kind of holding off. I'll do all these things that I know I need to do, like once I retire, because right now I'm too busy. Like, I'm too busy to take care of myself. I'm too busy to think about these other things. So I'll wait until retirement. And unfortunately, that never happened for her. And so for me, that was a huge wake up call. So I was in my late 20s when that happened. And I was like, I don't want to wait until I'm close to retirement, right? I knew that things were wrong already, and I wanted to figure what that was. And so part of my own journey, I was not feeling well, and I wasn't sure what was going on, and I was not enjoying time with my family and my children. I was not enjoying what I was doing. Suddenly the job I hated, I loved, all of a sudden I hated it. And so I knew that there was something wrong, and I knew that I needed to figure out what it was. And of course, the first thing that I did is I went to go see a doctor, and they told me that I was depressed and I needed to take medication. And I tried medication for a little bit, but I found that that didn't really solve my dilemma of what is it that's wrong. So the medication just helped me to feel a little bit better, but that didn't really help me to transform the underlying issue. And so for me, it was that journey of starting to open up. And the way that I started to was by taking classes on intuition. And that was how I came to understand, oh, like all of these things that I'm feeling, like they're messages. And these are things that I need to be able to understand and seek to understand. And so there's different ways, of course, that you can choose to gain understanding and different ways of learning how to pay attention to your body. And in fact, there's a lot of somatic methods. So there's movement methods like yoga and breath work. And I'm trying to think, there's even people who go like long distance running or who exercise or who explore just the feelings in the body. Now that's important. Like somatic methods are important because they help us move the energy. And especially when the energy's stuck, it's hard to understand something when it's not moving, when it's just kind of stuck in one position. And so helping to move the energy opens up, it makes space, it opens up our awareness so that we can start understanding what that is. But for me, I think somatics isn't enough. Like so being able to move the energy is one thing. Now, if you're using a somatic method that also includes understanding what those messages are, then that's the key, right? Because you can do somatics all day. The transformation for you, the long-term transformation is going to come when you understand what is going on. So the somatics is going to help to move the energy and you're going to feel better, but that does not necessarily lead to transformation. Transformation and real change happens when you understand what is the underlying issue, so that then you can go ahead and address that particular issue, whatever it may be. Now, so that's one of the things that we want to start doing is we want to start thinking about how is my body communicating? Okay, so I know that these sensations that I'm feeling are the communication. So that's the first step. Understanding, okay, these sensations are the communication. Now, we also want to think about what do we do when we start feeling these sensations? And usually, because we have been educated out of not paying attention to our body and not really understanding what our body is trying to tell us, then we usually try to do one of two things. We either try to numb, right? And we try to numb what we're feeling because we're feeling too much. And so we're trying to control those feelings. And so you may find yourself, okay, you're a person like that who uses that particular strategy. And that really is a survival strategy because you haven't learned the other ways of communicating. So you're saying, okay, so I'm feeling these things. It's too overwhelming. I'm feeling too much. I need to gain some control. Or you may be on the other side of the spectrum where something challenging happens and you automatically shut down. So, and then you're not feeling anything, right? And it's hard for you to get in touch with your body. So you're going to be in one part of that particular spectrum. And so what we want to start doing is we want to start recognizing, what do we do? What are the actions that we take when we start feeling this vibration, right? When we start feeling these feelings in our body, these sensations in our body that are uncomfortable, what do we do, right? So do you pick a fight? Or maybe you lose your patience, like you yell at your kids when you didn't intend to, right? And then you feel bad. Or maybe you have to turn to having a glass of wine so you can calm down and so that you can relax. Or maybe you have to go exercise. So exercise, it isn't just something that you do for your health, but it's something that you have to go do in order to move your body. Or maybe you need to take a nap and all you want to do is go to sleep. And so it tires you out and you want to sleep, and you know that it'll make you feel better. Or maybe you tune out and you get on your phone and start scrolling through social media, or you go binge watch a TV show, or you go shopping, or so there's a lot of things that we do in order to deal with these sensations in our body. Now, some of these actions that we do are not necessarily negative actions, like if you go exercise, for example, or if you go out into your garden so you can feel the earth under your feet and in your hands, or if you chat with a friend, right? So some of those things are positive. However, that action is showing you that there was something that wanted to come through those sensations. Like those sensations is communication. Like there's something there, right? But the thing is that we don't understand that that's communication. We don't understand that where we should be putting our attention is what is trying to come through. Right. And what we do instead is, because we don't know that, we don't know how to deal with that, then we seek this other action that helps us to manage that particular sensation, either by tuning it out somehow, or we need to release it in some way, through exercise or gardening, or we yell at someone, or we have a conversation, or so you do one of those things. You need to release it or you numb it. However, neither of those things, it's going to help you feel better for the right now. However, it's not going to help you understand what was happening, what's the underlying issue, what do you need to do? Because there is a message there, like that thing that you felt, right? And then that action that you took in order to deal with that feeling, like that was a message that was coming through. And so we need to start, that's step number one. Well, step number one was recognizing our body is an ally. And then once we start feeling the sensation, knowing there's a message here, right? There's something that's trying to come through, and I just don't understand what is being communicated yet, right? But you can learn those skills. We all have the capacity to learn those skills. So what I want you to make sure that you focus on is we need to start shifting our attention. So one is, how do you know that you're disconnecting, right? So choose one of those actions, or maybe one other action that I didn't necessarily list. So how is it that you disconnect? Do you avoid, right? Do you avoid, or do you seek to release? Or maybe there are some instances where you do the avoidance and other instances where you do the releasing, right? So it may not necessarily be one thing, but think of one situation, for example, and then did you seek to avoid it, like to make you feel better, or did you seek to release it? So if you think of like picking a fight, yelling at our kids, going gardening and going to the gym or going running, all of those are seeking to release. Now, if we want to take a nap, if we have a glass of wine, or if we go into social media, if we watch TV, all of that is more numbing. All those activities are numbing activities. So just know that we're either going to do one or the other, because that's our survival mechanism. Like we have to do that, right? So one thing that is very helpful is for us to not necessarily feel guilty about that thing that we did. That's just what we've been doing for survival, and that's okay. Once we recognize it, now we can shift it. Now we can know, oh, like that thing, it's a technique that I use to deal with whatever the message is coming through. I just didn't know that it was a message. So now we can go back and think about, okay, well, what is the message? And focusing on learning the skills to be able to decipher and learn what those messages are. But the very first thing is being aware of our sensations, being aware of the feelings in our body, being aware of the vibrations, of the emotion, however you want to think about it. And then knowing, okay, I need to get the skill so that I can stop there. So versus choosing the action that I used to take before, now I can stop when I feel that sensation and say, okay, there's something here that I need to be paying attention to? And then you can, once you learn the skills, then you can bring in the skills to deal with that particular whatever caused that particular sensation, right? Because there's something there. There's something that we need to be paying attention to. However, the very first thing is knowing that these feelings, these emotions, right, this vibration, this energy in motion is not a bad thing. It's actually part of our body seeking to communicate with us, right? And in fact, if we say, well, that's actually our soul seeking to communicate with us through our bodies by creating this vibration. There's something there. There's something that we need to transform, right? Because if you're feeling bad, then that means that there's something that needs to shift. There's something that needs to change. So that's what I want you to start working on, because if we're going to take a step towards our healing, we need to develop that awareness. And we need to develop that awareness first. And it takes a little bit of time. The more that you do it, the faster you can learn the skills. So the more that you seek that awareness, then the faster you can learn the skills, which is why your activity for today is to think about that. What is it that you do? What is the action that you take that is kind of your go-to when you need to deal with a difficult situation? Because now you can, once you identify what that action is, every time you take that action, then you'll know, oh, okay, like there's something here, right? And so then we can backtrack to the point where you don't even have to take that action. When it's happening, then you're aware of it. And then that'll open up the possibilities of being able to shift it. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and take this to the workbook. There's some journaling activities for you to actually anchor in your awareness and your knowledge so that you don't forget, and so you can come back to it and you can start noticing, building that awareness muscle so that then you can take the next step, which is going to be to start to shift it. So I look forward to hearing what you discover, what awareness you come to. So make sure to come and post it in the comments. Go ahead and share. I know that this can be a little difficult depending on what action we choose. And if you go big, then it may be an action that you don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing openly, which is fine. You can go ahead and DM me, or you can send me an email, and especially if you have questions regarding it. But the key, of course, is for you to have awareness yourself so that then you can take the next step, which is learning the skills so that you can shift that particular action or that particular behavior. And so I look forward to sharing the entire roadmap tomorrow. So thank you for sticking with me for these 4 days. So what I've been sharing over the 4 days are like the beginnings, the first steps of a couple of the components of the roadmap. So I'll share what they are tomorrow, and then I'll give you the other steps of the roadmap so you can have the entire roadmap as a whole, so you can see how everything works together. And you may start discovering what parts you've been missing, right? And if you're really new on your journey, you may find that that's a good tool for you so that you know what your next step is. So I'll be talking a lot during the workshop tomorrow about mistakes people make, about how they waste their time. A lot of people, and I'll talk about how they start at the end, and then that's one of the reasons why they have trouble getting the transformation and the change and the healing that they're seeking, because they're missing all of these previous components. So I'm going to share all of those components with you during the workshop tomorrow. So make sure that you click on the link in your email, which is going to send you the information so you can join me for that workshop. And then you can you can have all the pieces of the roadmap. So I look forward to, it's going to be, the workshop is going to be at the same time that I've been going live. Now, if you can't you can't come live, then the replay will be available for you to watch for a few days. So do make sure that you put that on your calendar, either to come live or to watch it in the next couple of days, so that you can have the whole system, so you can have the entire roadmap as something that you can be referring back to. So thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to reading your comments and getting your feedback, and seeing you tomorrow for the workshop.